"Ethan, I've made up my mind. Let's set our wedding for the end of this month. There are 30 days left. I want to leave the Lennox house as soon as possible." In the hospital room, Aurora Vance had just hung up the phone when Julian Lennox pushed the door open and walked in. His face was shadowed with irritation. "Who were you talking to?" Aurora covered her injured right leg with the blanket and said casually, "Just an old classmate." Julian didn't press further, but his expression remained grim as he approached her bed. "Aurora, I've seen your test results. You only have minor injuries. But because you deliberately drove your car into her, Serafina has been in a state of shock and running a high fever for 3 days. I am your brother, and she is your future sister-in-law. You need to learn how to respect her. Get up right now and come with me to apologize to her." As he spoke, his gaze swept toward the shoes on the floor. Aurora understood he was ordering her to stand up. She had just received over a dozen stitches in surgery yesterday. At this moment, she couldn't even stand, let alone walk to Serafina Quincy's ward to apologize. But she couldn't explain this to Julian because it wouldn't matter. Between her and Serafina, Julian would always choose to believe Serafina. Just like this car accident, it was clearly Serafina who had intentionally crashed into her to frame her. Yet in Julian's eyes, Aurora was the one with the malicious heart. Thinking of this, Aurora grit her teeth and used all her strength to stand. However, the moment her feet hit the floor, she collapsed with a heavy thud. At that exact moment, the ward door was pushed open. Serafina, dressed in a pristine white patient gown, happened to walk in. Seeing Aurora on the floor, she let out a startled cry. "Rory, even if you tried to kill me this time, you don't need to kneel to apologize. You are Julian's sister. Even if we aren't related by blood, as your future sister-in-law, how could I possibly hold a grudge against you?" She acted with feigned intimacy, helping the disheveled Aurora up from the floor, but her eyes were full of mockery and provocation. Her words were a pointed reminder of Aurora's status. She was just the Lennox family's adopted stray. Disgusted, Aurora brushed Serafina's hand away. Serafina immediately took the opportunity to fall to the side, wearing a hurt, pathetic expression. "Rory, enough." Before Serafina could finish, Julian rushed forward to support her. He turned to Aurora, his eyes full of loathing. "Aurora Vance, are you quite finished? Serafina has been patient with you time and time again, even coming to see you while she's sick, and this is how you treat her. And to think she was privately pleading with me not to blame you, Aurora. I have truly spoiled you rotten over these years, spoiled rotten." Aurora found the phrase almost laughable. Ever since Serafina returned from abroad when Aurora was 20, when had Julian Lennox ever spoiled her? He used to be the brother who put her first and indulged her every whim, but after Serafina appeared, he had gradually grown to detest and resist her. 5 years ago, Serafina invited her hiking but fell halfway up. Afterward, she cried and asked why Aurora had unbuckled her safety rope. That was the first time Julian had ever been truly angry with her. 3 years ago, Serafina killed Aurora's pet cat. Aurora, unable to contain her rage, slapped her. Julian responded by locking Aurora in solitary confinement for 3 days. And then there was this time. Serafina deliberately drove into her car, then cried to Julian, claiming Aurora wanted her dead. When Julian pulled Aurora out of the wreckage, he hadn't even glanced at her bloodied right leg. Instead, he delivered a sharp slap to her face and roared, "Have you lost your mind, Aurora?" At that moment, Aurora's ears had been ringing. As she lay on the ground, the world spinning, she looked at the face she had loved for nearly 10 years. Suddenly, a cold clarity washed over her. Since her love was so disgusting to Julian Lennox, she would simply stop loving him. Recalling those memories, Aurora's mind cleared. She gripped the side of the hospital bed to pull herself up and looked at Serafina. "I don't have an attitude. I'm just tired of playing along with her acting. Please leave." She turned, wanting to get back into bed, but Julian's face darkened even further at her dismissal. "Are you mocking, Serafina? Do you have any idea that maliciously hitting someone with a car is a prisonable offense? It's only because Serafina was generous enough not to call the police that you escaped charges. Instead of being grateful, you're being sarcastic, Aurora. You've been with our family for 20 years. Do you have no basic upbringing at all? Our family." The phrase made everything even clearer in Aurora's mind. The man she had kept in her heart for 10 years had always seen her as an outsider. It was truly pathetic. Aurora let out a soft, dry laugh. Why didn't she call the police? I actually really want the police to investigate why my car suddenly lost control. Aurora met Serafina's gaze. The latter's eyes flickered with a hint of guilt, and she quickly coughed. All right, Julian, it's in the past. Let's not talk about it anymore. Since Rory needs to rest, we shouldn't disturb her. She intimately took Julian's arm and pulled him toward the door. Just then, a young nurse came in for rounds. Seeing the wound on Aurora's right leg, she gasped. Miss Vance, who told you to stand up? You have over a dozen stitches on your leg that haven't healed. The blood is soaking through the gauze, sir. As her family, why weren't you watching her? She assumed Julian was Aurora's family and reprimanded him before rushing out to call a doctor for restitching. Julian froze. He looked down and finally saw Aurora's leg. The white bandage was indeed crimson with fresh blood. A flash of regret crossed his eyes. Rory, I didn't know. Julian, my head suddenly hurts so much. Julian was about to move toward Aurora, but as soon as he shifted, Serafina swayed and collapsed against him. Julian immediately caught her in his arms, his face full of panic as he shouted for help. Sierra, what's wrong? Doctor, someone call a doctor, get a consultation ready for Serafina. His heart and eyes were entirely on Serafina. He didn't look back at Aurora once. In those few seconds while being carried out, Serafina threw a triumphant look at Aurora that no one else saw. It was a silent message. So what if you're bleeding? As long as I pretend a little, Julian will leave you behind without hesitation, even if you were dying. Aurora watched Julian carry Serafina away, leaving her to collapse onto the bed in agonizing pain. Julian used to care about her like that. If she even had a slight cold, he would watch over her all day. Now, even when she was bleeding and broken, he couldn't be bothered to look twice. When did this change happen? It was probably when Serafina maliciously pried open Aurora's diary. Aurora still remembered the look of pure disgust on Serafina's face as she interrogated her. Aurora Vance, are you a pervert? Julian is your brother, and you wrote in your diary that you're in love with him? Aurora had turned pale instantly. She rushed forward to grab the diary back, ready to demand why Serafina touched her things, but when she turned around, she met Julian's cold, loathing eyes. From that day on, Julian Lennox's attitude had changed forever. Thinking of this, Aurora felt more awake. Her resolve to leave became even firmer. After the phone call, Aurora felt a sense of peace. For the next week or so, Julian didn't come to see her. She heard from the nurses that Serafina's fever wouldn't break, and Julian had been taking care of her around the clock for 7 days straight. The entire hospital was buzzing with stories of their devotion, and all the young nurses were green with envy. Aurora merely twitched the corner of her mouth at the news. She packed her things and checked herself out of the hospital. There were 20 days left until her departure. Because her leg wasn't fully healed, walking was difficult. She tried to hail a taxi several times, but other pedestrians kept cutting her off. Just as she was at a loss, a black sports car pulled up in front of her. Aurora, what are you doing here? Where are you going? I'll give you a lift. It was Barnaby Cooper, Julian's best friend. Aurora wanted to refuse, but she heard cars honking behind them and had no choice but to get in. Thanks, Barney. Just take me back to my apartment. Barnaby raised an eyebrow. What apartment? It's your brother's birthday today. We all agreed to celebrate. You're coming too. Aurora reflexively tried to decline, but Barnaby didn't give her the chance. He swerved the car toward the venue, where Julian's party was being held. They soon arrived at the private lounge. It was too late for Aurora to leave. Barnaby pulled her into the room and announced, "Look who I found." The noisy crowd fell silent. Julian, who was currently embracing Serafina, looked up and frowned immediately. "Why are you here?" Aurora tried to explain, but Serafina beat her to it. "Rory must be here to celebrate your birthday. Julian, I was wondering why you didn't answer any of my calls. It turns out you wanted to give us a surprise." As soon as Serafina said this, the people in the room began looking at Aurora with judging eyes. Ignoring her future sister-in-law's calls, it seemed so deliberate. Aurora knew Serafina was setting her up again, trying to smear her reputation. She spoke up to clarify, "I didn't receive any calls from you." "How is that possible? I clearly called so many." "Well, okay, if you say I didn't, then I didn't." "I'm sorry, Rory. Why are you apologizing? Didn't I tell you?" "As long as she refuses to apologize to you, I won't see her," Julian interrupted. his voice full of protective anger for Serafina. He turned a cold gaze toward Aurora. "Since you're here, pour your sister-in-law a drink and tell her you're sorry." Looking at Julian's frigid expression and the mocking eyes of the crowd, Aurora realized how redundant her presence was. She shouldn't have gotten into Barnaby's car. She bit her lip. "I just got out of the hospital. The doctor said I can't drink." It wasn't an excuse. Because of the severity of the accident wounds, the doctor had strictly forbidden alcohol. Serafina's face faltered and her eyes welled with tears. "Rory, you clearly look fine. Are you really unwilling to even have one drink with me?" Julian picked up a glass and shoved it toward Aurora. "Drink?" Aurora shook her head, which only enraged Julian more. His face was like ice. "Aurora Vance, Serafina has already humbled herself this much. What more do you want? You've been bullying her since the day she stepped into our house. Do you plan on bullying her for the rest of your life?" Aurora looked up. "The rest of your life?" That phrase sounded so familiar. Once upon a time, Julian had smiled, brushed her hair, and said he would protect her for the rest of his life. His version of the rest of his life was incredibly short. "It won't be for the rest of my life. I'm leaving Seattle at the end of the month. Once I'm gone, you two can live happily ever after." Aurora spoke softly. Julian let out a cold sneer. "What? Another running away from home act to make me go look for you? How long is it this time? 3 days? 5? His mocking tone was humiliating. In Julian's eyes, she was nothing more than a malicious sister who threw tantrums for attention. Serafina seized the moment. "Is Rory leaving because of me? If that's the case, there's no need to apologize." She must apologize. Julian forced the glass into Aurora's hand, leaving no room for negotiation. Aurora suddenly remembered years ago when she had a conflict with a classmate. She had been bullied and was afraid to fight back. Julian had stood in front of her then, staring down the classmate with that same cold gaze, saying, "Apologize now." With that same icy tone, he was standing on the opposite side. Aurora slowly took the glass. She looked at Julian, tilted her head back, and drained it. With that drink, the last shred of her attachment to Julian Lennox vanished completely. As she put down the glass, a wave of nausea hit Aurora's chest. She couldn't stop herself from running out of the room to vomit. She didn't see Julian's face turn livid. After a bout of violent retching in the restroom, Aurora finally caught her breath. She washed her face and slowly walked out. Her calf throbbed with sharp pain. Just as she was about to crouch down to rest, she heard footsteps behind her. Was it Julian? Julian MMP. Before she could speak, a hand clamped over her mouth. The unfamiliar scent told her immediately that something was wrong. She tried to struggle, but it was too late. She was pinned against the sink. A drunken, sinister voice hissed in her ear, "Julian this, Julian that. Your brother is busy having fun with your sister-in-law. I'm the only one who's been thinking about you." It was Silas Lynch, the notorious scumbag of their circle. A lecher with countless victims, he had always had his eye on Aurora. But in the past, with Julian protecting her, he hadn't dared to move. Today, he had likely seen Julian's blatant disgust for Aurora and decided she was fair game. Panic surged through Aurora. She used every ounce of strength to shove Silas away and delivered a hard slap. "Get away from me, you piece of trash. Don't touch me." The pain cleared Silas's head slightly, making his expression even uglier. He sneered and lunged at her again. "You dare hit me. You little slut, I'm going to ruin you today." His eyes were bloodshot, and his face was flushed with an unnatural redness, as if he were on some kind of drug. Aurora turned to run, but Silas grabbed her and slammed her against the wall. He slapped her back hard. With a cold laugh, he began tearing at her clothes, pinning her to the floor. "Get off! Don't touch me!" Aurora's lip was bleeding from the hit. She had no strength left. Just as she thought it was over, the weight on her suddenly vanished, followed by a scream of pain. Aurora huddled into herself and opened her eyes to see Julian, his face white with rage. Silas immediately pointed at Aurora to shift the blame. "Mr. Lennox." "It wasn't me. Aurora Vance seduced me." Hearing this, Julian's eyes filled with a murderous chill. He looked down at Aurora, his teeth clenched. "Are you really this cheap?" "I didn't." Aurora couldn't even form a full sentence. She could only stare at Julian and shake her head, trying to explain. But Julian looked at her as if she were something revolting. Serafina, seeing this, was delighted. She stepped forward and deliberately fueled the fire. Rory, even if you really have something going on with Silas, you shouldn't do it in such a filthy place. With so many people around, were you really that desperate? You've completely humiliated Julian. As soon as she said that, the surrounding crowd's whispers turned into open contempt. They were convinced Aurora had degraded herself to be with a scumbag like Silas Lynch. Aurora looked at their faces and realized there was no point in explaining. No one believed her. She slowly stood up, ignoring the blood on her face, and said hoarsely, "I'm not his biological sister anyway. How could I possibly humiliate him?" "It's a good thing you aren't." Julian grabbed the collar of Aurora's torn shirt and dragged her toward the mirror. "Look at yourself, look at how pathetic you are. I don't have a sister this shameless. Because I don't want you, you go to trash like this to throw yourself away. You aren't even half the woman Serafina is." If this entire night was a farce, those words were the steel nail that finally pierced Aurora's heart. Aurora had always secretly been glad she wasn't Julian's biological sister, because it meant she had a tiny chance of standing by his side. But at this moment, those feelings felt like they had been doused in sewage. Aurora didn't remember who brought her back, but she woke up in the middle of the night in the Lennox mansion, her fever raging. She dragged herself up to find some fever reducers, only to stumble upon two figures entwined on the living room sofa. Their clothes were disheveled as they kissed passionately. It was Julian and Serafina. Aurora didn't have the courage to watch them. She turned and went back to her room. At that moment, a drunken Julian rolled off the sofa, mumbling, "Aurora, come back." Serafina, who was trying her best to please him, froze. Her expression darkened instantly. She bit her lip and glanced toward Aurora's closed door, her eyes brimming with hatred. "That little slut. She's still seducing Julian. I really need to get rid of her soon." Her resolve hardened. After a long moment, she helped Julian back to his bedroom. Aurora didn't sleep a wink. She got up early and packed the last of her belongings in the Lennox house. She had arrived here at 5. Serafina appeared when she was 15. At 18, she had moved out under the guise of attending university. After graduation, she had rented her own small apartment. However, her adoptive mother, Evelyn Lennox, had always been kind to her and kept a room for her so she could stay over whenever she visited. But now, Aurora didn't even want this small room anymore. She carried her small suitcase downstairs, only to be stopped at the door by Serafina. Serafina was wearing a sexy, sheer black nightgown. Her messy hair and the strap slipping off her shoulder were silent proof of how intense the previous night had been. "You should see your brother. He's like a beast in bed every time." "Oh, I really shouldn't be telling you this. After all, you're Julian's sister. It must be embarrassing to hear about your brother's sex life." Serafina's voice was sugary and devoid of shame. She was flaunting. Aurora didn't say a word and tried to walk past her. Serafina, annoyed at being ignored, blocked her again. "Aurora Vance, if you're leaving, then leave for good. Stop texting and calling Julian all the time. We're both women. Don't think I don't know what kind of game you're playing." Aurora looked at Serafina's sharp, poisonous face and compared it to the gentle, sweet act she put on for Julian. She wondered how Julian would react if he knew her true face, but she didn't care anymore. She took out her phone and, right in front of Serafina, blocked Julian's number and his social media accounts. "Is this enough?" she asked. Serafina was surprised by the decisiveness. "What are you planning now?" "Nothing. I'm not coming back to Seattle ever again, so you don't need to be so hostile." Aurora pulled her suitcase toward the exit. Serafina gasped. You mean you're never coming back? Who's never coming back?" Before Aurora could answer, Julian's deep voice came from behind her. He looked hungover as he walked down from the second floor. He glanced at the small suitcase in her hand and sneered. "Another little suitcase for show. Aurora, if you're going to act, can you at least make it realistic? There are truckloads of your stuff in this house. If you're leaving, take it all, okay?" Aurora gave a self-deprecating smile. Truckloads? Julian was daydreaming. Her childhood jewelry and accessories had long been taken by Serafina under various excuses. Her dresses had been ruined for various reasons. Even her childhood paintings had been burned by Serafina when she was 18. Her room was already empty. There were no truckloads left, but she didn't want to explain. She just looked at him. "Your stomach medicine is in the small kit. Julian's stomach issues are long gone. You don't need to worry about him. If you're leaving, then get going," Serafina interrupted. Her tone was so disgusted, she might as well have been kicking Aurora out. Aurora bit her lip and looked at Julian one last time. He looked just as impatient, showing no sign of wanting her to stay. Aurora was fully awake now. She gripped her suitcase and walked out of the Lennox house. Aurora stayed in her rental apartment for over a week. The wound on her leg was mostly healed. There were 10 days left before her move to New York. Over the next few days, she packed her remaining belongings and shipped them to New York, leaving only the essentials. She contacted her landlord to terminate her lease in a week, the exact day she was flying out. The landlord was surprised. "When you renewed last time, didn't you say you were going to stay in Seattle for work? Why the sudden move to New York?" Aurora smiled. "I'm going to New York to get married." "Married? When your boyfriend came to see you last time, didn't he say he was a local? Why move to New York?" Aurora blinked, realizing the landlord had mistaken Julian for her boyfriend. "He wasn't my boyfriend," Aurora said calmly. "My fiancé was a college classmate. He's been pursuing me for years. I only just agreed to marry him." Talking about Ethan Sterling made her tone lighter. If it hadn't been for Ethan's support and protection over the years, Serafina might have truly broken her. The landlord frowned, but said nothing more and left. The next morning, Aurora went to her office to finalize her resignation. She had submitted her notice a month ago, and everything was finally processed. As she walked out of the building, she received a call from her adoptive mother, Evelyn Lennox. Evelyn sounded enthusiastic. "Rory, where are you? I'm back from my trip. Come home for dinner tonight. I brought gifts for you." "Mom," Aurora tried to decline, but Evelyn cut her off. "Cancel whatever you have planned. It's rare for me to be this happy, and your brother will be home too. It's settled. See you tonight." Evelyn hung up before Aurora could say another word. Aurora looked at the black screen and shook her head helplessly. Evelyn had always been good to her. She really should say goodbye properly before she left. So, Aurora went to the mall to buy some gifts and headed to the Lennox mansion that evening. As soon as she entered the living room, she heard Serafina's voice. "Mr. and Mrs. Lennox, you were gone for so long, Julian, and I were so jealous of your travel photos. I wonder when we'll get to go on a trip like that." Arthur Lennox laughed heartily. "It's because you're by Julian's side that we felt safe enough to go. We really should thank you. Once you marry into the family..." "Oh, Mr. Lennox, Julian and I haven't reached that stage yet," Serafina spoke bashfully, the picture of a perfect, obedient future daughter-in-law. She looked like she belonged in the Lennox family more than Aurora ever did. Aurora felt awkward, feeling like an intruder. Just as she was considering sneaking away, Serafina spotted her. "Oh, Rory, didn't you run away? Go on a trip. You're back so soon." Serafina's voice was loud, drawing everyone's attention. Aurora instinctively lowered her head. Julian let out a cold snort, his face wearing an "I knew you'd come back" expression. He looked at her with contempt. "Is your little performance over already?" His tone was arrogant and mocking. Aurora wasn't surprised. She stepped forward, put down the gifts, and took a deep breath. "Mom called and asked me to come over. Since you just got back from your trip, I brought some gifts." "Give it a rest." Julian's voice grew even more haughty. "You obviously heard Mom and Dad were back and used it as an excuse to crawl back to the house, didn't you? Aren't you tired of this constant acting? If you would just apologize to Serafina, she would forgive you, yet you insisted on making this scene." Serafina immediately stepped in to mediate. "Now, Julian, don't be so hard on Rory. That's just her personality. Her personality is no excuse for a lack of upbringing." Arthur Lennox, who was used to Julian's attitude toward Aurora, joined in. "Aurora, did you bully Serafina again? Apologize to her right now. Don't make your brother angry." Aurora felt a suffocating sadness. Everyone had already decided she was guilty. Even Arthur didn't bother to ask what happened before demanding an apology. The last of her attachment to the Lennox family vanished. She didn't want to fight anymore. She would never see them again anyway. She lowered her head. "I'm sorry, Serafina, I was wrong." Julian hadn't expected Aurora to give in so easily. He was stunned for a moment and reflexively moved toward her. "Rory, you don't need to apologize for the car accident, Rory. I already forgave you for that. But your brother is still very upset about the mess with Silas Lynch. You should apologize to him, too." Serafina cut in before Julian could speak. Julian's momentary guilt was instantly replaced by disgust at the reminder of that night. "What do I have to be upset about?" Julian said coldly, turning away. If she wants to degrade herself by messing around with trash like Sela's, that's her choice. I'm just disgusted that she's dragging the Lennox name through the mud. Arthur didn't know the details, but years of habit led him to side with Julian. He frowned. Aurora, even if you are an adopted ward, your actions reflect on this family. It's bad enough that you constantly pick fights with Serafina, but how can you be associating with such low lives in public? The baseless accusations felt like a weight on Aurora's chest. Coming back here was a mistake. She turned to leave, but Evelyn Lennox came out of the kitchen. Seeing Aurora, her face lit up with a smile. "Rory, you're back. I made your favorite sweet and sour ribs. Come and try some." Seeing Evelyn's joy, Aurora couldn't bring herself to say she was leaving. After all, Evelyn had truly loved her as she grew up. When Aurora's parents died, she was only 5. She had been sent to an orphanage, confused and alone. Evelyn and Aurora's mother had been best friends. Despite her husband's objections, Evelyn had taken Aurora into the Lennox home, saving her from a life in the system. For the sake of that debt, Aurora had swallowed every grievance over the years. She didn't want to make things difficult for Julian. Evelyn warmly put food on Aurora's plate, smiling. "Rory, there's actually a reason I called you back today. Julian and Serafina are getting settled, so I wanted to ask, have you thought about your own future?" "Your marriage?" Aurora froze. "Me? Yes, I ran into Mrs. Harrington in Paris. She said her nephew just moved back to the States and wanted to know if you'd be interested in meeting him." Evelyn brushed a lock of hair from Aurora's forehead. "He saw you at a gala once and has been thinking about you ever since." Aurora was surprised. She hadn't realized this was Evelyn's motive. Before she could refuse, Serafina chuckled. "I had no idea our Rory was so charming, having so many men pining for her Julian, don't you think?" Julian's face darkened, his eyes cold. What kind of man would be interested in her? Probably some bottom-tier trust, fund brat who only cares about racing cars and women. Mom just turned him down for some reason. He felt an inexplicable wave of irritation. Evelyn clicked her tongue and glared at her son. "What a thing to say. Aurora is wonderful. It's natural for men to like her. You used to be so fond of your sister. I don't know why you're so hard on her lately. Besides, what's the harm in young people getting to know each other? I think this boy is—" "Mom, there's no need." Aurora interrupted. She looked at Evelyn. "You don't need to set me up on blind dates. I already have someone I love." "You have someone you love? Who is it?" Evelyn asked eagerly. Aurora smiled and shook her head. She didn't want to reveal Ethan's name yet. "I'll bring him to meet you when the time is right." Evelyn was delighted. "If you're bringing him to meet me, does that mean you're dating? That's wonderful. What family is he from? What do his parents do? Is he a good man?" Beset by Evelyn's rapid-fire questions, Aurora gave vague answers. Serafina let out a light laugh. "Rory, you wouldn't be making someone up just so you don't have to get married and can stay in the Lennox house forever, would you? You have to remember that you and Julian aren't related. You wouldn't want to cling to this family forever and ruin your brother's reputation, would you?" She emphasized the word brother, her eyes full of disdain. Julian looked over, his gaze cold and calculating, as if he also believed Aurora was lying. Just then, Aurora's phone rang. It was Ethan Sterling. "I need to take this," Aurora said. She walked out to the garden before answering. Ethan's voice was as gentle as ever. "Rory, I've booked your flight for 5 days from now. The wedding venue is ready. Once you land in New York, we can get married." The sound of his voice made her feel safe. She smiled. "Okay, see you in 5 days." Aurora tucked her phone away and turned to go back inside, only to walk straight into a hard chest. She gasped and looked up to see Julian. "Who were you talking to?" he asked coldly. Aurora bit her lip. "A friend." "A boyfriend?" Julian sneered, looking down at her. "Aurora, enough is enough. Just because I have Serafina now and can't indulge you like before, you have to invent a man to get my attention. Can you stop being so childish? You'd be better off spending your time learning how to be sensible from Serafina." Aurora sighed inwardly. She didn't understand what she had done over the years to make Julian think everything she did was for him. "I'm not inventing anything. I'm telling the truth." Aurora lowered her head. "I might not be coming back very often in the future. Take care of Mom." Julian let out a sharp laugh. "Come back or don't. Once you leave the Lennox family, let's see who would actually want you." With that, Julian walked away without a second glance. The final 5 days passed quickly. After the fallout at the house, Aurora didn't see Julian again until the day she was scheduled to leave for New York. She had packed all her bags. She took one last look at her apartment of several years and took a taxi to the airport. At the airport, she discovered that Ethan had booked her a business-class ticket. Warmth filled her heart. She headed toward the business lounge, only to see Serafina and Julian walking toward her from the opposite direction. Serafina's face changed the moment she saw Aurora. Her voice turned shrill. "Aurora Vance, are you a stalker? Julian and I just wanted to go on a trip for a few days and you're following us?" "I am not. Don't lie, you even bought a business-class ticket if I hadn't spotted you now. Were you planning on, accidentally, bumping into us after boarding?" Serafina's face was flushed with anger. She had done everything to get Julian to agree to this trip, and now this bitch was here to ruin it. She was livid. Julian looked equally annoyed. He didn't even ask questions, he just took Serafina's side. "Aurora, this is a trip for just the two of us. Don't be so lax in self-awareness. Refund your ticket and leave the airport immediately." Aurora was beyond frustrated. She hadn't said a single word, yet she was being labeled a shameless stalker and subjected to their hateful glares. She took a deep breath and held up her ticket. "I'm sorry, I had no idea you were traveling today. I have my own itinerary. Since it's inconvenient, I'll wait for my flight over there." She pulled her small suitcase and walked toward the opposite side of the lounge without hesitation. For some reason, as Julian watched Aurora's retreating back, his heart skipped a beat. Something felt wrong. He wanted to go after her and ask where she was going, but Serafina grabbed his arm. "Julian, I'm hungry. Can we go get something to eat?" "You go ahead, I have something to do." Julian pulled out his phone and reflexively dialed Aurora's number. He was met with a busy signal. Serafina saw this and remembered Aurora blocking Julian right in front of her. She immediately stepped in and pushed his phone down. "Julian, were you going to ask Rory to eat with us? She's probably on the phone with some other guy. Doesn't she always find other men whenever you ignore her?" Julian's face darkened. Aurora did have that habit, always trying to get his attention. Who knew what kind of stunt she was pulling this time? He put his phone away and looked at Serafina. "Let's go. Let's eat." "Okay," Serafina agreed happily, clinging to his arm as they walked away. When Julian wasn't looking, she threw a contemptuous look toward Aurora's back. In the distance, Aurora didn't look back once. Half an hour later, she checked her bags, put on her sunglasses, and boarded the plane to New York. At the same time, Julian and Serafina boarded their international flight. But for some reason, Julian couldn't shake the unease. He pulled out his phone and thought about the busy signal. He frowned and was about to try again when a WhatsApp message came from Barnaby Cooper. It was a video wedding invitation. "Julian, why didn't you tell me Aurora was getting married? We've known each other for years. I definitely need to send a gift." "What? Who's getting married?" Julian gripped his phone, suddenly standing up in the cabin. Barnaby was taken back. It's Aurora, you didn't know. The wedding is the day after tomorrow." Julian felt the blood rush to his head, but before he could speak, the plane accelerated for takeoff, soaring into the clouds. The flight soon leveled off. But Julian was in a state of extreme anxiety. He pulled out his phone, which was in airplane mode, and opened the electronic invitation. He stared at the man and woman on the screen, his face pale with rage. He knew Ethan Sterling. He was the young heir of the Sterling Group in Hong Kong, incredibly handsome and wealthy. He was Aurora's college classmate and had been trailing after her like a puppy back then. Julian had been furious back then and warned Aurora to stay away from such a playboy. It seemed Aurora hadn't listened after all. She had finally gotten involved with a man like that. She must be doing this to get his attention. The more Julian thought about it, the angrier he got. He called over a flight attendant and asked for the arrival time and the soonest return flight. Serafina's expression soured. She forced a smile. "Julian, we finally have time for a trip. Why are you in such a rush to go back?" Julian frowned. "There's something at the office. I need to go back. You stay here and have fun. Buy whatever you want. Use my card." Serafina had also seen Aurora's digital invitation on her feed before the flight. She knew exactly why Julian was acting this way, but she could only try to soothe him for now. "That's fine. We'll just take a short rest after we land and then head back. Work is important after all." "Yeah." Julian said nothing more. He closed his eyes and leaned back, falling into deep thought. 6 hours later, the plane landed. The first thing Julian did after getting off the plane was call Aurora. He tried several times, but it kept going straight to a busy signal. He finally realized he had been blocked. His face was thunderous as he snatched Serafina's phone. Serafina cried out, "Julian, she blocked you. Why would she still have my number?" "It won't go through on my phone either." Julian paused, looking at Serafina with suspicion. "How do you know she blocked me? What else do you know?" Serafina's face changed slightly. She quickly explained, I don't know anything. I just assumed because the calls weren't going through." Julian was skeptical but didn't press. He used Serafina's phone to call Aurora. This time, it actually rang. But it was hung up after just one ring, and when he tried again, he was blocked on her phone as well. Julian realized that Aurora simply didn't want to talk to him. His chest felt tight with frustration. He called Barnaby Cooper directly. "Go to Aurora's apartment right now. Tell her to get her ass back to the Lennox house and wait for me. She is not allowed to see that bastard Ethan Sterling without my permission, and tell her to answer my calls, or else." Julian Barnaby interrupted, trying to calm him down. "You've got it all wrong. Aurora isn't in Seattle. I can't go to her place, and I certainly can't bring her to the Lennox house." "Not in Seattle? Then where is she?" "Didn't you look at the invitation? Aurora is getting married in New York." "Naturally, she's in New York right now," Barnaby explained, his voice full of confusion. Julian felt a cold shiver run through him. He snarled into the phone at Barnaby. "Who gave her permission to go to New York? Who gave her permission to marry someone else?" Barnaby let out a light cough. "Bro, what are you talking about? Aurora doesn't need anyone's permission to get married. She wants to, so she is. When she loved you with her whole heart, you didn't want her. You were so cold to her, and now that she's—" "Shut up." Julian couldn't listen anymore and hung up. Serafina saw that Julian was being triggered by the news of Aurora's wedding. She stepped forward to try and change the subject. "All right, Julian, don't be angry. Aurora has always had a liberal private life. Maybe she's getting married so suddenly because she got pregnant and couldn't hide it anymore." Julian suddenly turned and grabbed Serafina's collar, pinning her against the wall. His eyes were murderous. "Don't you dare talk about her like that. Aurora would never do something like that." Serafina was terrified and let out a scream, but Julian didn't react. He shoved her aside and stormed away. As he walked, he called his assistant. "Book me a flight to New York right now. I don't care if it's business or economy, get me the fastest one." The assistant was confused by the sudden order. "Mr. Lennox, there are no direct flights to New York from your current location. You'll need to transfer twice. The earliest you'll land is the day after tomorrow." "The day after tomorrow?" Julian checked the invitation again. The wedding was the day after tomorrow. She had done this on purpose to make sure he couldn't be there meanwhile, in New York. When Aurora landed, Ethan Sterling was already waiting at the airport. Seeing her, he immediately pulled her into a deep embrace. "Rory, I've finally found you." Aurora smiled gently. "I promised I'd come." Ethan pulled back, taking her suitcase. His eyes were full of tenderness. "Good. From now on, New York is your home." Aurora nodded and followed Ethan out of the airport to a house he had prepared. It was a top-tier private residence, modern and perfectly aligned with Aurora's taste. She was surprised by the interior. "Is this your place in New York? It's beautiful." Ethan handed her a folder containing the property deed. "Technically, it's yours. I've had it ready since the year I moved back to New York for work. I was just waiting for you to move in." Aurora opened the file and saw her own name on the deed. She was stunned. "Ethan, this is too expensive. I can't." "Rory, you told me that ever since graduation, you never felt like you had a home. I want this house to be where you find that feeling again." Ethan interrupted her refusal. Hearing this, Aurora felt a sense of being protected. It was a feeling she hadn't known since she moved out of the Lennox house. Now, it was finally returning. The grand wedding of Aurora Vance and Ethan Sterling took place as scheduled, under the watchful eyes of the media. When Aurora entered wearing her stunning gown, she instantly became the center of attention. The guests were full of admiration. "My God, the bride is breathtaking. No wonder the Sterling heir has been pining for her for years." "I heard they were classmates in college. Ethan had to chase her for a long time to win her over. It's a bit strange, though. Why aren't the bride's parents here? Is she an orphan?" The whispers were low, but Aurora didn't care. She was certain of her choice. She believed Ethan would never fail her. She walked toward him with a steady gaze. Suddenly, the doors to the venue were burst open. A travel-worn Julian Lennox rushed in, his face pale with fury. "Aurora Vance, have you lost your mind? Stop this farce right now." Aurora heard the familiar voice and looked up for a second, but she said nothing and continued walking. Julian was incensed at being ignored. He strode toward Aurora but was blocked by Ethan. "Julian Lennox, today is our wedding. If you're here to offer your blessings, take a seat in the VIP section. If you're here to cause trouble, don't blame me for being impolite." Julian felt his blood boil. He shoved Ethan aside, disregarding his own image. "What wedding? Aurora doesn't love you. Why should she marry you?" He looked at Aurora on the stage, his tone still threatening. "Aurora, I can pretend today was just a stunt. As long as you get down here right now and leave with me, I am not going with you." Aurora looked down at Julian. She looked radiant, but her eyes were cold and detached. Julian felt a surge of rage. "Aurora, are you doing this just to force me because I'm with Serafina? Fine, I'll break up with her. Just cancel this wedding right now, and I'll act like none of this happened." Hearing Julian's arrogant declaration, Aurora found it incredibly pathetic. What had she done all those years to make him misunderstand her this much? Did he really think everything revolved around him? She took a deep breath. "Julian, I'm marrying Ethan because I love him and he loves me. It's as simple as that." "Impossible, you loved me for so many years. How could you suddenly love him?" Julian shouted, refusing to believe her. Aurora found it ironic. He had known she loved him all those years, yet he had the heart to hurt and ignore her so deeply. She turned to Ethan and smiled. "Let's continue." "Okay," Ethan replied. He gave a look to his assistant, who immediately signaled the security team. They dragged Julian out of the room. Julian never expected Aurora to be so resolute. He screamed as he was pulled away. "Aurora, you're crazy, stop this wedding right now." His shouting was soon drowned out by the warm wedding march. The guests didn't care about the small interruption. They continued to offer their blessings to the perfect couple on stage. After being kicked out of the wedding, Julian realized that Aurora's marriage wasn't just a fit of pique. The scale of the wedding suggested Ethan had been planning this for a long time. Julian recalled Aurora's behavior over the last month in Seattle. Everything started to click. When she left the Lennox house with her suitcase and mentioned the medicine in the kit, she had never done that before. She usually prepared the medicine for him herself. And when she said she had someone she loved and turned down the blind date, he had mocked her for trying to get his attention. All those phone calls, her mention in the hospital of leaving the Lennox house in 30 days. He had heard her say it, but he had dismissed it as another act. Now he understood. She had planned her departure a month ago. This past month was just her slowly cutting the final ties. Once the 30 days were up, she left the Lennox family and Seattle for good. The realization brought an unprecedented fear, the fear of losing Aurora forever. Julian, Barnaby Cooper, ran over from a distance. "What happened? Did you see her? What did she say?" Barnaby had caught an earlier flight after Julian's call to try and help, but he hadn't even seen Aurora's face. Julian's face was dark. "No, I need to see her alone. I need to explain things to her." Barnaby looked conflicted. "I don't think that's going to work. This is New York, Ethan Sterling's turf. He won't let us stay here and harass her." He wouldn't dare. Julian was still stubborn. He tried to force his way back into the venue, but he was blocked again by the same men who had thrown him out. Leading them was Ethan's assistant. The assistant's face was expressionless. "Mr. Lennox, Mr. Sterling has made it clear. If you continue to harass Mrs. Sterling, we are to send you directly back to Seattle," Julian sneered. "You think you can touch me?" Barnaby sighed. "Bro, they actually can." As soon as he said that, the assistant signaled his men. They restrained Julian and Barnaby. Despite their struggles, they were shoved into a waiting car. With efficient coordination, they were taken to a private jet. Without any delay, they were flown directly back to Seattle. Julian and Barnaby arrived back in Seattle that same night. By then, Julian realized that things were completely out of his control. He rushed to the Lennox mansion and tore into Aurora's room, pulling everything apart and overturning cabinets. The noise soon brought his parents. Arthur and Evelyn Lennox, still in their pajamas, were shocked. "Julian, what are you doing? Why are you destroying the room?" Julian's face was panicked. He looked at the empty cabinets. Where are her documents? Her passport, her birth certificate, her degree, her awards. Where are they? He remembered clearly that all of Aurora's documents were kept at the Lennox house because she said it was where she felt safest. Evelyn frowned in confusion. What are you talking about? Aurora moved her legal records out of this house after she graduated. You agreed to it at the time, and her awards and trophies. Serafina said she was envious of them, and you told Aurora she was just showing off, so Aurora packed them all up and took them with her. Evelyn thought Julian knew all this. Why was he looking for them now? Julian's body trembled. His mind replayed his mother's words, and he felt even more lost. I just told her to put them away. Who gave her permission to take them? What about her clothes, her jewelry? Where are they? Arthur Lennox also frowned. Julian, what has gotten into you? You were the one who said Aurora was just a ward and that her expensive clothes would upstage Serafina. Because of that, Aurora gave most of those things to Serafina years ago. Julian stumbled back, hitting the desk with a loud crash. Yes, he had said those things to her, but he did it so she would have no other choice but to stay in the Lennox house, not to drive her away. Why? Why did Aurora leave so completely? Evelyn saw Julian's expression and realized something was wrong. She stepped forward. Son, what is it? Did something happen to Rory? Julian closed his eyes, his mind filled with the image of Aurora in her wedding dress, smiling as she walked toward Ethan Sterling. He took a deep breath. Aurora got married. What? To whom? Arthur and Evelyn were stunned. Just then, Serafina Quincy, who had heard Julian was back, arrived at the mansion. Julian, she called out, then immediately began her usual manipulative routine. You're finally back. What kind of scheme is Aurora playing now? The news says she married the Sterling heir. It's laughable. Why would a family like the Sterlings marry a woman who messes around with trash like Silas Lynch? Serafina. Julian interrupted her, his gaze dark as he turned toward her. Serafina was startled by the look in his eyes. She began to stutter. What? What is it, Julian? The car accident a month ago. What really happened? Julian stared her down. Serafina's heart skipped a beat. She looked away and said guiltily, Nothing happened. I told you Aurora was jealous and tried to kill me. She slammed her car into mine. I almost died. Julian held up his phone. On my way back from the airport, I received the report from the forensic lab. It shows that your car was the one that deliberately hit Aurora's. Serafina turned pale. No, that's not right. She hit me at that moment. Barnaby Cooper called again. Julian put it on speaker. Barnaby's voice was full of disbelief. Julian, I did the investigation you asked for regarding Aurora's movements this past month. It turns out that after the accident, she had over a dozen stitches in surgery. She wasn't barely scratched like Serafina said, and Silas Lynch, the guy who cornered her in the bathroom on your birthday. Serafina paid him to harass Aurora. Also, for the last 2 weeks, Serafina had people tracking Aurora. She knew Aurora had a flight to New York and deliberately invited you on that trip to make you think Aurora was stalking you. The list of Serafina's manipulations poured out of the phone. Serafina's face was ghostly white. Arthur and Evelyn were horrified. Aurora was in an accident. Serafina hit her. When was this? Julian slowly put his phone away, his eyes burning with hatred. So all these years, you were the one calculating everything. You were the one who drove her away. Serafina was in a panic. She grabbed Julian's arm, trying to explain. No, Julian, Aurora is the shameless one. She was in love with you, her own brother. I was just giving her a lesson. And didn't you always think her feelings for you were disgusting? Didn't you always avoid her? I was just doing what you wanted to do. Serafina had been so bold because of Julian's indulgence. She knew Julian cared about his reputation and wouldn't dare get involved with his sister. So he let her bully Aurora. As Julian listened to Serafina's accusations, he felt as if his heart were being gripped by iron claws. He glared at her. Who gave you the right to guess my thoughts? Who said I didn't love Aurora? I've always loved her. I never saw her as my sister. When he roared those words, Arthur and Evelyn were completely stunned. Serafina looked like she had seen a ghost. Julian didn't care anymore. He grabbed Serafina's collar and hissed. All this time, you were nothing more than a tool to make Aurora jealous, and you dared to frame her over and over again. Serafina, everything you gained using the title of my fiancé. You're going to give it all back now. He threw her aside without a shred of mercy. Arthur couldn't take it anymore and stepped forward. Julian, if you don't like Serafina, then break up with her. But why bring Aurora into this? Aurora Vance is the Lennox family's ward from the day she came here. She was your sister. Don't ever let me hear you talk about loving her again. If people heard that, they'd think our family had no morals. Evelyn also spoke up. Julian, she's legally our ward. She can only be your sister or else, she stopped, looking at Julian with unease. Julian let out a cold, bitter laugh. Or else we wouldn't have a legal reason to misappropriate the inheritance her parents left her, right? The room went dead silent. Arthur and Evelyn were frozen. They never expected Julian to speak that secret aloud. It was the secret the Lennox family had hidden for nearly 20 years. Shut up. Arthur stepped forward and delivered a hard slap to Julian's face. His face was red with rage. Don't you ever say that again. Julian's cheeks swelled immediately. He looked at them and laughed at himself. No wonder Aurora wanted to leave. Our family is truly disgusting. With that, he ignored his parents and walked out of the house. Serafina, seeing this, chased after him. Julian, wait, you can't do this to me. I'm your fiancé. Everyone knows we're getting married. You can't leave me. Julian shoved her away with icy indifference. Serafina, I never felt anything for you. I only agreed to be with you to hide my feelings for Aurora, but now I've decided to face my own heart. From this moment on, we have nothing to do with each other. My PR team will issue a statement. He got into his car and drove away, leaving Serafina screaming on the ground. No, Julian, you can't do this. As Julian's car disappeared, the hatred in Serafina's eyes intensified. That bitch Aurora. Even after leaving Seattle, she still find ways to seduce Julian. I'm not done with her, New York. After the grand wedding, Aurora was exhausted. That night, she didn't even have the energy to shower. Ethan had to carry her into the bathroom. Aurora had been nervous about the wedding night, but Ethan had everything prepared. She looked away shyly, only to hear Ethan's fond chuckle. We're married, and you're still shy. Aurora had spent all her teenage years pining for Julian and had almost no experience with other men. In college, she and Ethan were just friends. There had been no physical contact. Now, looking at the handsome, muscular, and tender Ethan, her face turned bright red. Ethan, please be gentle. I will, Ethan promised softly, pulling the covers over them. The room was filled with warmth. Aurora didn't know how the night passed. She only remembered sleeping for a long time. When she woke up, it was already noon the next day. Ethan was working, but as soon as he saw her wake up, he brought her the lunch he had prepared. Aurora was a bit embarrassed and took her time getting ready before joining him in the dining room. As soon as she sat down, her phone rang. It was Evelyn Lennox. Aurora hesitated before answering. Hello, Rory, you finally answered. It was Julian's voice. He sounded desperate and anxious. Rory, listen to me. I know I misunderstood you. The car accident was Serafina's fault, and I found out about Silas Lynch. He was the one harassing you and Julian Lennox. Aurora cut him off, her voice calm. I don't care about those things anymore. I'm happy now. I wish you and Serafina well. She was about to hang up. Julian spoke quickly. I broke up with Serafina, Rory. I never loved her. The one I've always loved is Julian. Who you love is your business. You don't need to tell my wife. Ethan took the phone from Aurora and spoke coldly. Julian's voice turned furious. Ethan Sterling, give the phone back to Aurora. You have no right to answer for her. Ethan glanced at Aurora. She was focused on her lunch, seemingly unbothered. He walked over to the window. Julian, you should understand that as Aurora's husband, I have far more right than you do. Ha, husband. You just took advantage of her anger to trick her into a wedding ceremony. You haven't even registered the marriage yet. Julian's tone was nasty. If Aurora wants to, she can just issue a statement and divorce you. Ethan laughed softly. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but the only reason we haven't registered yet is that we wanted to do it on a special day. Like tomorrow. Tomorrow was Ethan's birthday. They had already agreed to register then. To Ethan, Aurora was the best birthday gift he could ever receive. Julian went silent for a few seconds before snarling, No, I won't allow you to. Ethan hung up and immediately blocked Evelyn's number as well. He walked back to Aurora with a smile. After a day of rest, Aurora felt much better. Ethan stayed home with her all day, and they discussed where to go for their honeymoon. It was strange. Aurora used to think Ethan was just a good man and that marrying him was a sensible choice for her future, but she didn't feel intense passion. Now, after moving to New York, her heart raced every time she looked at him. She felt like a schoolgirl again, and Ethan knew exactly how handsome he was. He was constantly teasing her, making her blush. Ethan noticed her shyness and teased, "Rory, why are you always blushing when you look at me? Have you never seen such a handsome husband?" Aurora playfully retorted, "I've never seen a husband with such a thick skin." Ethan laughed and pulled her back onto the bed. The next morning, dressed in simple white shirts and carrying their documents, they headed to the marriage registry. Because of the massive media coverage of their wedding, everyone in the city recognized them. As soon as they entered, the staff enthusiastically guided them through the paperwork and took their official photos. Before the final seal was applied, the registrar spoke solemnly. "Once this is stamped, you will be legally married. I wish you a long and happy life together." Thud, at the exact moment the seal hit the paper, a figure burst through the doors. A familiar voice rang out. "Aurora Vance, stop!" It was Julian again. The smile faded from Aurora's face. She took the certificates from the staff and tucked them away before standing up to leave with Ethan. "Wait," Julian intercepted them. He snatched the certificate from Aurora's hand. Seeing Aurora's sweet smile in the photo, he took a shaky breath. "Rory, I know I hurt you, but I've realized now that I can't lose you. You've given me a lesson by making such a scene. Now be a good girl and divorce Ethan. Come back to Seattle with me. I'll act like none of this ever happened." Julian had planned to be humble and explain his feelings, but seeing Aurora with another man made his possessiveness flare up. His tone became demanding again. In Julian's eyes, Aurora had always been his. He couldn't accept that she had her own thoughts and could leave him. Ethan let out a cold laugh and stepped in front of Aurora. "Mr. Lennox, you're quite resourceful. Despite my efforts to keep you away, you've managed to find us again. But no matter how you got here, understand this. Aurora is not divorcing me. Stop talking nonsense." Julian sneered back. "Not divorcing? For what? To live a life with a rich playboy? What do you have besides money? Do you know Aurora? Do you know her history, her pain? Do you know what she's thinking? You know nothing. What right do you have to be her husband?" Aurora frowned and stepped forward to defend Ethan, but Ethan held her back, keeping her behind him. He looked Julian in the eye. "Aurora is fragile and lacks security. After her parents died, your family took her in. Because she was so desperate for a home, she was always obedient. She never said no to anything the Lennox family asked. She let you choose her school, her major, everything. She doesn't know how to explain herself, so even when she was bullied and framed by your fiancé, she couldn't defend herself. Because she loved you once, she accepted 10 years of coldness and emotional abuse from your entire family. You made her feel like she was lesser than you. Aurora always saw you as her closest relative. Even if you didn't return her feelings, she saw you as family. But you, because you were too much of a coward to face your own heart, you blamed her for everything and let Serafina hurt her. Julian Lennox, what right do you have to stand there and tell me I don't know her?" Ethan's words left Aurora in shock. She never realized how deeply Ethan understood her. He loved her far more than she had ever imagined. "Ethan," she whispered. She didn't know what to say, but she wanted to call his name. Julian, his face pale, looked shaken. "No, I didn't think she was lesser than me. I just didn't know how to face her." Ethan let out a cold snort. "Think whatever you want. It has nothing to do with Aurora now. Rory, let's go." He put his arm around Aurora to lead her away, but Julian wouldn't let her leave. He grabbed her arm again. "Rory, you know I didn't mean it like that. All these years it was because Serafina was doing things in the background. So Julian, let's talk." Seeing that Julian wasn't going to give up, Aurora sighed. She knew him. If she didn't make things clear, he would never stop. They found a nearby cafe. Aurora sat at a table in the back. Ethan sat a short distance away, where he could see her but not hear the conversation. Julian ordered 2 lattes and pushed one toward Aurora. "Your favorite." Aurora gave a faint smile. "Serafina is the one who likes lattes. I've always preferred juice." Julian froze, looking startled. "How? You always ordered lattes at our dinners." "That was because Serafina was always there. She hated me, so she took every chance to make me uncomfortable. She'd order the coffee I hate, and then the moment I showed any dislike, she'd run to you and claim I was being difficult." "I'm sorry, Rory. I didn't know." As Julian recalled those moments, he realized she was right. Serafina was always starting trouble, and he had always sided with her. He felt a wave of hatred for Serafina. It was his own fault for not seeing her true face. "Rory, don't worry. I've ended the engagement and issued a public breakup statement. I won't be blinded by her again." Aurora looked at him, her eyes clear. "It wasn't Serafina. The person who really hurt me was you." Julian went still. "I admit I loved you," Aurora continued. "From the time I was a confused teenager until I grew up, I loved you, not as a brother, but as a man. I'm not afraid to admit what I've done, but what about you?" Julian began to tremble, his hands clenching into fists under the table. "The summer I was 16, I fell asleep in the garden. You were the one who kissed me first. At 18, when a classmate confessed to me, you were the one who dragged him into an alley and beat him up. You told him I was your future wife and to stay away from me. At 20, when I graduated, you were the one who pretended to be drunk and told me you wanted me to stay in Seattle so we could live together forever. Julian, you were the one who gave me all those hints and hopes. You made me believe our feelings were mutual. That's why I let myself stay trapped in my love for you all those years. And then you turned around and told me you were just my brother." Aurora spoke calmly, without accusation or drama. "Serafina is hateful, but Julian, you were the one who started all of this." Aurora had never told anyone about these things, not even when Serafina pried open her diary and Julian called her shameless. She had kept it to herself. She knew Julian was afraid. He cared about his reputation and didn't want to be known for being involved with his ward. So she said nothing. But now, with Julian hounding her and Ethan, she wanted an answer. Julian's face was devoid of color. He couldn't believe that the things he thought he had hidden so well were known to Aurora all along. He was a coward. He wanted the Lennox family's reputation and status, but he also wanted Aurora by his side forever. He loved her, but he never had the courage to admit it. He used Serafina as a shield. He had to show everyone he favored Serafina to hide his love for Aurora. He thought he had been so clever, but Aurora had seen through him the whole time. His eyes welled with tears. He reached out to grab Aurora's hand, his voice trembling. "Rory, I know I was wrong. I love you. I loved you long before you realized it, but I was afraid. My father said you were my sister, and if I loved you, it would be, that's enough." Aurora interrupted him. She didn't want to hear that word from his mouth. She looked at him with a calm face. "The past is in the past. Your family raised me, so I won't contest the inheritance. Consider it my way of paying back the Lennox family for my upbringing. Please don't ever disturb me again." She stood up and felt a sense of relief. She turned to walk toward Ethan. But a second later, Julian rushed after her and grabbed her in a desperate hug. "Please, Rory, give me one more chance. I truly know I was wrong. Aurora Vance, you bitch, you're still seducing Julian. No wonder he did everything to come to New York." Before Julian could finish, Serafina Quincy burst into the cafe. She shoved Aurora and raised her hand to strike. But this time, Julian was fast. He grabbed Serafina's wrist. "Stop, don't you dare touch her." Ethan also rushed over, pulling Aurora into his arms and staring coldly at the two of them. "Mr. Lennox, if you can't control yourself, can you at least control your woman? Do I really have to get violent?" Serafina's voice turned even shriller. "Aurora, you really are something. You managed to get the sterling air wrapped around your finger so fast. How did you do it? Is it your mouth or your technique? Teach me." Slap. Before Serafina could finish her filth, a sharp slap landed on her face. Ethan was stunned. He looked back and realized it was Aurora who had struck her. Julian was equally shocked. In all the years he had known her, Aurora had never been this aggressive. Serafina clutched her cheek, stunned. When she realized she had been hit, she lunged at Aurora like a madwoman. Julian caught her. "Enough, stop this madness. I told you we are finished." Serafina couldn't accept it. "Julian, how could you? You love me. It must be something Aurora told you, right?" "It's her fault. I'll kill her." Aurora looked at the hysterical Serafina with a steady gaze. "Serafina, I used to ignore your insults and lies, but from now on, I will not tolerate them." "You bitch," Serafina started to scream, but Aurora gave her such a cold, piercing look that she instinctively recoiled. Aurora didn't want to waste another second. She took Ethan's hand and walked out. Julian tried to chase after her. "Rory, I POW." Before he could finish, Ethan Sterling, who had reached his limit, turned around, grabbed Julian's collar, and delivered a heavy punch to his face. Touch my wife again and I'll kill you. Julian fell to the ground. Ethan wanted to hit him again, but Aurora stopped him. It's okay, Ethan. Let's go home. Ethan suppressed his rage, gave a cold snort, and led Aurora out of the cafe. Serafina rushed to Julian's side. Julian, see. Aurora didn't care at all when you got hit. She doesn't love you, and her husband is the heir to the Sterling Group. He's richer than you. She obviously only went to New York for the money. She's abandoned you. Julian wiped the blood from his lip. He watched Aurora walk away and whispered, She never abandoned me. I was the one who failed her. Serafina was fuming. Julian, you've been brainwashed by that bitch. She obviously has a new man and looks down on the Lennox family now. Yet you still. Serafina, Julian roared, his eyes full of warning. I don't care about what happened before, and I won't bother trying to get back the money I spent on you over the years. I only have one demand. Stay away from me, and stay away from Aurora. With that, he didn't look at her again and walked out of the cafe. Serafina was left screaming behind him. In the car, Aurora noticed Ethan staring out the window. She smiled and tilted her head. I didn't know you were such a fighter. Why were you so obedient when Julian told you to stay away from me after graduation? Shut up, it's because I was an idiot back then and actually thought he was just being a protective brother. Ethan started venting his frustrations. I thought since he was my future brother-in-law, I should make a good impression so he'd support me when I proposed to you. I had no idea he was such a bastard. It's one thing to bully you, but to actually have designs on you. If I'd known, I would have beaten him then and saved us all this trouble. Aurora laughed. Ethan hadn't changed at all. Ethan looked at her and teased, You too. You had such a handsome classmate like me. How could you have liked a coward like Julian Lennox? You have terrible taste, Aurora sighed playfully. Yes, I have terrible taste and you have great taste. Happy? Definitely I picked such a wonderful wife, so my taste is clearly superior. Ethan leaned in and stole a kiss on her cheek. Seeing her blush, he laughed out loud. After a moment, he grew serious. Rory, you don't need to get your hands dirty with people like Serafina. She isn't worth it. Just give me the word, and I have plenty of ways to make sure she can't show her face in the city again. Aurora raised an eyebrow. Is this the perk of marrying a powerful CEO? You solve all my problems? Ethan smirked arrogantly. Of course. Why do you think so many girls want to marry into money? This is the best part. Aurora couldn't help but laugh again. Late at night, Julian Lennox sat in a bar, drinking himself into a stupor. Aurora's words kept echoing in his head, each one like a knife to his heart. He couldn't believe he had been so cruel to her for so many years. All of Aurora's suffering had been caused by him. He raised his glass and drained it again, then shouted at the bartender, Another one, keep them coming. Julian, stop drinking. It hurts me to see you like this. A familiar voice spoke in his ear. Julian looked up, his eyes blurred by alcohol. He grew excited. Rory, is it really you? You care about me? You still love me, Serafina? Why are you here? The excitement vanished instantly when he recognized Serafina. He shoved her away. Get lost, Aurora left me because of you. Get away from me. Serafina turned pale, but she gritted her teeth and suppressed her anger. She had stayed with Julian all these years not just because she liked him, but because he could provide the life she wanted. She was actually an illegitimate daughter of the Quincy family. Her mother was a nightclub hostess who had seduced a Quincy son. After giving birth, she took a payout and disappeared. Serafina grew up in the Quincy household but was always looked down upon. Even the servants bullied her. She hated that life, so she worked hard to find a man. When she discovered the Lennox and Quincy families had once discussed an engagement, she did everything to catch Julian. Her status in the Quincy family rose instantly. But after Julian announced the breakup, the Quincys began treating her like trash again. Her half-sisters were trying to kick her out. Terrified, she had followed him to New York, desperate to win him back. When she saw Julian and Aurora together at the cafe, she had lost her mind and screamed at them. Now she realized she had only made Julian hate her more. Julian, don't be like this. I'm the one who truly loves you. Don't you love me too? Let's go back and plan the wedding. Let's get married, okay? Get out, I would never marry someone like you. Go away. Julian was disgusted. He struggled to stand, as if even touching her made him feel sick. Serafina grit her teeth and pulled out a small vial she had prepared an aphrodisiac. You forced my hand, Julian. Don't blame me. She poured it into his drink, swirled it, and handed it to him, coaxing him to drink. Afterward, she helped the drugged Julian to a nearby hotel room. She laid him on the bed and let out a triumphant laugh before heading into the bathroom. However, the moment the bathroom door closed, Julian's eyes snapped open. He coldly stood up and walked out of the room. The next morning, Serafina woke up disheveled. She looked at the man lying with his back to her and smiled. She took her phone and took several provocative bed photos from various angles. Once she had enough evidence, she put the phone away and snuggled up to him. "Julian, you aren't awake yet. Who are you? Why are you in my bed?" She hadn't even finished her sentence when the man turned around. It wasn't Julian. It was a completely unfamiliar, sleazy man. The man smirked. "Hey, beautiful, you were so wild last night. Come here, let's go again." "Get away from me," Serafina screamed, but a second later, the hotel room door was burst open. A swarm of reporters and paparazzi rushed in, cameras flashing. The lights were blinding. Serafina was caught in a state of undress, her shame captured for the world to see. By that night, she was the headline of every tabloid. Aurora Vance saw the news while she was preparing for an interview at a new company. Before moving to New York, she had sent her portfolio to several top design firms. She wanted to build a real life here, so she wasn't going to give up her career. Ethan was fully supportive. He knew how talented she was and believed she could succeed on her own. As Aurora walked out of the interview, she was about to call Ethan when a car pulled up. It was Julian. "Rory, where are you going? I'll give you a lift." Aurora frowned. "Why are you still in New York? I thought I made things clear. We have nothing to talk about." She turned to walk away. Julian jumped out of the car. "Rory, I know I hurt you, but I want a chance to make it up to you. I'm not asking for a divorce right now." "I'll wait, don't bother." Aurora turned to face him. "I have no intention of ever divorcing Ethan. Waiting won't change that." The color drained from Julian's face. "I know you hate me because of Serafina, but I've made her pay for what she did." "Wait," Aurora interrupted. "What do you mean, made her pay? Was that scandal today you're doing?" Julian's expression darkened. "She brought it on herself. She tried to drug me and called the reporters herself to force a marriage. I just gave her a taste of her own medicine." Aurora was horrified. "You set her up to sleep with another man? You claimed to love her for years. She was your fiancé. How could you do something so cruel?" Even though Serafina had been malicious, hearing Julian describe his actions so coldly made Aurora feel a chill. Julian tried to explain. "I only treated her that way because I realized how evil she was. She did so many horrible things to you. I said I'd make her pay." Aurora looked at the frantic Julian. She felt a profound sense of distance. She realized she had never truly known him. "Julian, whatever you do to Serafina is your business. Don't do it in my name. I want absolutely nothing to do with either of you." She signaled for Ethan's driver and left without looking back. Julian watched her go, feeling a deep sense of powerlessness. What could he do to win her back? When Aurora got home, Ethan already knew about the encounter from the driver. Seeing her mood, he said, "If he's bothering you, I can have him forcibly removed from New York and sent back to Seattle." "It won't matter," Aurora sighed. "Unless he decides to give up himself, he'll just find another way to come back." Ethan was annoyed. How can someone be so shameless? He knows he's the one who messed up, yet he blames everyone else and keeps stalking you. Ethan used to think Julian was just arrogant, but now he saw him for what he was, a piece of trash. Aurora took a breath. "It's okay, I have to face it sooner or later. No matter what he does, it won't affect me. We just need to focus on our own lives." Ethan nodded. "The driver, Silas, is a good bodyguard. He'll handle your commute from now on. He'll make sure no one bothers you. Call me the moment anything happens." "Okay," Aurora agreed. The two of them went out for dinner, and they were captured by local media again. The headline was, "The Sterling Power Couple's Romantic Date." On social media, people were praising their relationship, but Serafina, staring at her phone from a cheap motel, was losing her mind. She posted vitriolic comments. "Aurora Vance is a bitch. She seduced her own brother in Seattle, and now she's a gold digger in New York. Don't let her fool you. She's a slut who's been with countless men. She doesn't deserve to be a Sterling. She should die." Her comments were quickly reported and deleted. Her account was banned. Serafina was on the verge of a breakdown. "That bitch. It's all her fault. She's the one who ruined me. I won't let her get away with it." Aurora's interview was a success, and she joined the top design firm in New York. The department head was impressed by her portfolio and put her in charge of a major project. Aurora threw herself into her work. She worked regular hours, and Ethan often picked her up. Overall, she was very happy with her new life, except for the fact that she saw Julian Lennox near her office every single day. Julian had bought a place nearby and moved his key operations to New York. He spent his days following Aurora's car. He followed her from her home to the office in the morning and from the office to her home in the evening. This went on for 2 weeks. He was clearly settled in for a long-term campaign. Aurora ignored him completely, hoping he would lose interest, but he seemed unbothered. Ethan was so annoyed he eventually kicked Julian's car door. "Julian Lennox, do you have no shame? Are you a leech? You're impossible to shake off." Julian was expressionless. "I'm just doing what I want. I haven't even spoken to Aurora. What right do you have to stop me?" Ethan sneered. "You think this makes you look devoted? I'm telling you, this just makes Aurora more disgusted. She's probably regretting ever loving a piece of trash like you." Julian snapped. He grabbed Ethan's collar and pinned him against the car. "I won't let you talk about our past like that. She will never regret loving me." "I bet she does." Ethan didn't even bother to fight back. He signaled for the driver to pull Julian away and gave him a look of pure contempt. "You're a coward who can't face reality. Go ahead and live in the past forever." Ethan got back in his car and drove away with Aurora. Julian got back in his car, ready to follow, but a figure suddenly darted in front of his vehicle. He slammed on the brakes, only to find Serafina standing there. She was a shadow of her former self, wearing a tattered coat. She grabbed his car door, sobbing. "Julian, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I'll be good from now on. Let's get married, okay?" Julian looked at her with pure loathing. "In your dreams. I will never marry you." "No," Serafina screamed, refusing to let go. "If you don't marry me, the Quincy's will kill me. Please, for the sake of our past, just tell them you'll marry me." Julian laughed. "What were you thinking when you drugged me and called the media? A woman as vicious as you deserves exactly what she gets." He shoved her away and tried to close the door. Serafina realized Julian was serious. Her desperation turned to hatred. She blocked the door and hissed, "Julian Lennox, are you really not going to give me a way out?" "Don't touch me," Julian said coldly. "You make me sick." The last bit of color drained from Serafina's face. She stared at him. "You're the one who ruined me. You're the one who hired that sleaze in the hotel. Do you have any idea how hopeless I felt?" Julian looked down at her. "When you hired Silas Lynch to harass Aurora, did you think about how hopeless she felt? I'm just giving you a taste of what you did to her." "Fine. I understand." A strange, eerie smile appeared on Serafina's face. "You destroyed the most important thing I had, Julian. Now, I'm going to make you feel what it's like to lose the thing you value most." Julian smirked. "I've already lost the thing I value most. Only someone as greedy as you would think material things are the most important." With that, he drove away. Serafina watched him go and laughed softly to herself. "You're wrong, Julian. The thing you value most is that bitch Aurora." After a month of hard work, Aurora's project was finally finished. Her colleagues wanted to celebrate, but she turned them down. She wanted to celebrate this achievement with Ethan. To surprise him, she told the driver she was working late and didn't need a ride. She ordered a cake and gifts, intending to show Ethan her completed project files. However, she got caught up in some final details and didn't realize it was already 8 p.m. The office was empty. She was about to turn off the lights and leave when she heard someone call her name. "Aurora Vance." She froze and turned around to see a woman in a janitor's uniform and a mask. "Can I help you?" Aurora asked, confused. "Oh, you can definitely help me." The woman dropped her cleaning tools and walked toward Aurora. She pulled off her mask, revealing a face twisted with hatred. It was Serafina. "I'm here to take your life." As she screamed, she lunged at Aurora with a knife. Aurora's eyes went wide. She scrambled back, putting a desk between them, but Serafina was relentless. "Bitch, it's all your fault. Julian abandoned me. Because of you now I'm going to show Julian what it feels like to have nothing." She had been planning this for a week, sneaking into the company as a janitor. She had locked all the exits. She was going to kill Aurora. Aurora couldn't outrun her. Serafina caught her and pinned her against a desk, the knife raised high. No help. Aurora used all her strength to grab Serafina's wrists, but the knife was inches from her chest. She closed her eyes in despair. Suddenly, the weight was lifted. With a heavy thud, Serafina was thrown against a nearby table, screaming in pain. It was Julian. He had been watching the building and realized Aurora hadn't come down. He had come up to investigate and found them. "Rory, are you okay? Are you hurt?" Julian asked frantically, helping her up. Aurora shook her head, but then she saw Serafina scramble to her feet. Serafina lunged again with the knife. Watch out," Aurora screamed. Julian pushed Aurora out of the way and turned to stop Serafina, but Serafina was ready. At the last second, she switched the knife to her other hand and drove it deep into Julian's side. No, Aurora froze, her hand over her mouth. But Serafina wasn't done. She pulled the knife out and laughed hysterically at the bleeding Julian. "You're willing to die for her? Fine, I'll send you both to hell." She stabbed him again. Aurora closed her eyes, and a second later, the alarms blared. Ethan burst into the room and pulled Aurora into a tight hug. "It's okay, Rory. I'm here. You're safe." Sirens filled the air as the police arrived and took Serafina into custody. The ambulance arrived quickly and rushed Julian to the hospital. Ethan took Aurora to the police station to give a statement before heading to the hospital. The doctor informed them that Julian's condition was serious. Even if the surgery was successful, he would need a long recovery. Aurora didn't say much. She called Arthur and Evelyn Lennox. The next day, the Lennox parents arrived in New York. The moment Arthur saw Aurora, he started yelling. "I knew we should never have taken you, and now look, what you've done to Julian. Are you happy now?" Ethan stepped forward to intervene, but Aurora stopped him. She looked Arthur in the eye. "Mr. Lennox, I legally terminated my relationship with your family years ago. I am not your daughter. I am grateful for my upbringing, but what happened to Julian is not my fault. Do not blame me for his choices." Arthur was speechless, but Evelyn pulled him back. Evelyn was in tears. She reached out to take Aurora's hand. "Rory, the Lennox family owes you. If it hadn't been for the inheritance your parents left, the Lennox group would have gone bankrupt years ago. You saved us." "I never had the courage to tell you the truth. I was a coward. Julian failed you, and our family. We all failed you. Why are you telling her this?" Arthur snapped. "She's just be quiet," Evelyn shouted, showing a rare moment of strength. She wiped her tears and looked at Aurora. "No matter what happens, no matter if you ever call me Mom again, you will always be my daughter in my heart. If you are ever in trouble, come to me." Aurora slowly pulled her hand away. Her voice was calm. "I've already suffered enough at the hands of the Lennox family. Mom, after today, whether Julian lives or dies, I hope you never disturb me again. This is the last time I will call you that." Without another word, Aurora took Ethan's hand and left the hospital. Evelyn watched her go and finally broke down in tears. Julian woke up the following morning. His first words to his mother were, "Aurora, is she okay?" Evelyn's voice was flat. "Julian, I've arranged for the best medical team in Seattle to take over your care. As soon as you're stable, we're going home. We are never coming back to New York." Julian's eyes filled with despair. "She really won't forgive me." Evelyn wiped her eyes. "Julian, if you really feel sorry for her, then stay out of her life forever. For her, the best thing we can do is leave her alone." Julian closed his eyes, his voice choked with emotion. "But Mom, I can't let go. I can't." Evelyn looked at him sadly. "You're the one who lost her. Whether you can let go or not, you have to accept it. This is your cross to bear." "I understand," Julian whispered, finally accepting his fate. Julian and his parents left New York a week later. Before leaving, Julian testified against Serafina and hired a top legal team to ensure she would spend the rest of her life in prison. The evidence was overwhelming. Months later, Serafina was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The Quincy family publicly disowned her, stating they would not protect such a criminal. Serafina's last hope was gone. She tried to end her life in prison several times, but failed. During her last attempt, she jumped from a height and broke her leg so badly she was left with a permanent limp. Aurora never asked about these things. To her, Serafina was a stranger. She felt no hate, only indifference. Julian never contacted her again, until the day Aurora went to the hospital for her prenatal checkup. Julian tried to call her from a random number several times, but she didn't answer. Finally, he seemed to understand. He sent a single text message, "I wish you happiness." Aurora looked at the message, felt nothing, and deleted it. She looked up and smiled at Ethan as he walked toward her. Ethan was beaming. "How are you? Are you feeling okay?" Aurora shook her head. "I'm only 6 weeks along. I don't feel anything yet," but Ethan was already a nervous wreck. In the doctor's office, he peppered the physician with questions. "Doctor, is it a boy or a girl? Will they look like me or my wife? Will her feet swell? Does she need a daily massage?" The doctor couldn't keep up with the questions, and Aurora was laughing. She pulled on his arm. "Calm down. It's only 6 weeks. It's the size of a peanut. They can't tell the gender yet. Don't stress the doctor out." Right, I shouldn't be excited. Boy or girl, I'll love them regardless." Ethan was already lost in his fantasies of fatherhood. He started calling his assistants to plan the nursery and contacting toy brands. Aurora was amused, but she felt incredibly blessed. She had spent her whole life wanting a real family. The Lennox family was a part of her past, and Ethan was her present and future. Now, this little life was coming. This was her true family, connected by blood. The feeling was magical. Ethan seemed to read her mind. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her forehead. "Rory, we're a family of 3 now. I'll love you forever." Aurora looked up and smiled. "I love you too. I love our home." The sun was shining, the path ahead was clear, and everything was moving toward a brighter tomorrow. The end.